South American weather beating down the markets. We are going to discuss this issue and others with Gidel right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, we had these weather events in Mato Grosso that has been impacting all the grain markets.
Yes, yes. Well, earlier in the week, we had kind of a bounce back from the USDA's report for November here, with really the forecast in South America showing some extreme heat. We're talking about 100 to one. The one person talked about it being 122 in Rio, which really isn't the world of where agriculture is in Brazil, but 40 to 50 degrees centigrade is very, very hot. And that, along with the fact that really, if you look at this month's numbers, we increased the carryover stock 40 million on corn and 25 million on beans. Really not significantly higher numbers in that, and it provided some early enthusiasm here in the week, Monday and Tuesday. The crop condition situation also kind of turned back around. Wheat, which for some strange reason had a 3% increase in good and excellent. I guess the rain they forecast by some of these weekly expert people didn't come through. It went back to 47, and then corn's up at 95%, so that's pretty well done. Soybeans was 95%. Corn was only 89% versus expectations of 91, 92. From there, so the market found some strength on Monday and into Tuesday on that per se. So the markets tried to find some footing there early in the week, but after the after the NOPA crush statistics, which was super, we actually had a number up here, 5 to 6 million over the previous record, 2 million over expectations, and actually surprisingly, I think that's going to actually turn out to be a U.S. total soybean crush statistic for the month of October at over 200 million bushels. Never been done before, but that was the last hurrah in the soybean market and generally the markets for the week, because by the time we got even to some very impressive weekly export sales and reports numbers, the market was quickly focusing on the weather event that seems to be finally occurring here in northern Brazil. We've had plenty of rain in the southern areas, Paraná and Rio Grande, in parts of northern Argentina and Paraguay, but really very spotty up there, and there's lots of things have been continued behind by at least 10%, maybe more, on overall nationwide plantings. Lots of concerns about after replants, things of that nature. But it's interesting in the fact that this late date, it's really going to end up impacting the crop down there on how much replants are going to have, and also the fact that if you replant beans, that doesn't mean that you're going to have an opportunity to go ahead and plant corn next spring in our time period after the soybean harvest. So that's an interesting scenario. I've been kind of pointing to that issue for some time. Hasn't really grabbed the corn market by any means, but definitely a factor this week that right now, at least, the rains start tonight and on through Thanksgiving in the U.S. here on Thursday. And varying ideas here, anywhere from 1 to 4 inches across the whole area between the two models.
Yes, now in terms of U.S. exports, I think the crop is mostly out. And what are you seeing for the coming weeks?
Well, without the Oh, concerns about the crop still being in the field, things like that. The market's really going to have to be dependent on our shipment paces, what's going on in other places in the world, things like that. What kind of harvest reports we get from Australia is a good example on wheat. They're coming up here for their harvest situation and that. So we're switching from supply concerns to demand levels of and that. The interestingly enough, the USDA's export sales on Friday, or excuse me, on Thursday, and that despite the fact that we had a record old crop sale of 144 million, or about 3.9 million metric tons of beans, the overall comparisons people are making was the total old and new crop. And we didn't have any new crop purchases here because it was dominated by China. They were doing some of their old soybean diplomacy here before the big meeting between Biden and Xi in San Francisco this week. And glad they did. To some extent, it helped bounce us back here on our seasonal demand for soybeans. But to some extent, the market took that number as well, all in, all done type situation, and that because the overall number on old and new crop was back to 2012. But if you look at just old crop purchases, we've never had a bigger purchase than that. So you would think that would give us a little boost. But unfortunately, the market had already slipped down below its downtrend line, or excuse me, we've really been developing a pennant if you're in your technical world and that, and we advanced, went above it earlier in the week, looked pretty impressive, got close to $14. But then once it slipped down below that, it really lost its enthusiasm from the investing community. And so the market did not respond to it. I guess the key question is going to continue to be how South America's potential crop sizes turn out to be. We're going to have to sort through some of that, but in general here, it is a little surprising. Usually we have some stronger seasonal prices here in the U.S. until after Thanksgiving and close to the December 1 date, when the U.S. Internal barge system finally starts to shut down in the upper Mississippi above St. Louis because of winter issues and that. So they start no particular barges can go up or down. Really, I want to say in that part of the world up there. So this means that we can only end up getting beans off the Ohio and from southern areas. And that also surprisingly promotes a lot of beans to move from the Pacific Northwest through Seattle and Portland this time of year. And considering what's happening in our friends in Panama, that's probably not an unusual situation to have happen.
Yes, and what are you expecting given the context for the markets in the coming weeks?
Well, I kind of feel like this market is still going to be concerned about South America's prospects, and also how this mix is going to happen, how much acres of or area is going to be committed in Brazil to beans. There's some talk that some of those acres might even be shifted towards cotton on a longer term basis. To some extent, the interesting thing about it is there's a lot of people feeling like that their corn, second crop corn scenario is going to be cut back. And even one of the more prominent analysts for South America has his production number clear down at 121 million metric tons, down 2 million this month. He also took 2 million off of his soybean number at 158. But I think that's an interesting feature. But the problem, because in the short term, is that's a long ways away before those numbers really come into fruition. And there's always optimism that somehow or other crops can always get better. I kind of feel like there's going to be some support in the soybeans here Well, it's not that far away near term, but still looking at maybe if we can get a bounce back here after some support in the $13.30 area basis January, that we still have some lift in this thing between now and early December. Because even now, the forecast for South America, once this rain event occurs, there's not much behind it again, and we could really be back in the soup again with heat and dryness reaffirming itself here during the month of December. So kind of limping along. Corn's really down its basic support at this point. Wheat's kind of in the same vein here. So I'm kind of anticipating maybe a little weakness yet near term, but not anticipating a complete. We're really down at values people have seen during harvest. So, they're just going to keep on storing it here in the US. So we'll see what that does or doesn't do. But I'd have to say that the market activity near term is going to be somewhat muted, I think, per se. We've pretty well already assumed some pretty good moisture in the soybean market after the last couple of days of setbacks on things. But I guess the key question is if we take 1330 out, we could still sit that market down to $13. But the overall tightness in the U.S. and the overall world supplies of soybeans with Brazil under threat, I don't know that it's going to slip dramatically. We're going to have a wholesale liquidation like that in the oilseed prices around the world.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
You do. And at this point, we have a shortened week next week. We only have trading through Wednesday. Then we're off Thursday completely in the U.S. And then resuming trading, by the way, on Friday at 8:30, not normally at the 7 o'clock time here in the Midwest on Sunday, or excuse me, on Thursday night. They're giving us a break. And so that'll be nice for the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday and that. But that's always interesting. So, short weeks sometimes can become one of volatile because there's a lot of people that put their stops in either way and don't really participate. And sometimes that creates some liquidations like we even had Thursday this week, even before we had the USDA report. So right now, at least everyone have a bountiful Thanksgiving in the U.S. and everyone else gets a chance to have a U.S. prices off on Thursday.
Indeed. Thank you.
You bet. Talk to you next week.